Hello, everybody, and in the doll world, a show spotlighting the passion and the people of the doll community. With your host, me, Georgette Taylor, former vice president and co-founder of Big Beautiful Dolls, and Tammy Fisher, owner of Curiosity Dolls and Collectibles. Join us as we talk to and feature fascinating new dolls and doll artists, from avid collectors to repainters, redesigners, bloggers, authors, filmmakers, and all the people in between as they share their journeys, give us glimpses into their processes and what propels their passion and drive that help to keep the doll world moving and shaking. Here are your hosts, Georgette and Tammy.
Hello, everyone. I want to thank you for joining us today. We are super excited to be speaking with our friend Jozef Szekeres again. If you remember, Josef is the creator of the GlamourOz Dolls. And today in our room, we have my co-host, Georgette Taylor, and me, Tammy Fisher. And like I said, we have our friend Jozef Szekeres. And today we're going to speak about Josef's dolls, which he refers to as the God Squad, the GlamourOz Dolls. So without further ado, I'd like to say hello to Josef and to Georgette. Hello.
Hey, how's everybody?
Hello, Tammy, and hello, Georgette. Thank you so very much for inviting me for this chat.
Thank you for joining us. Yeah. So we're really excited to be speaking with you. We're seeing that you're at a point where you're further along with the dolls than you were with our first interview. And what's going on, what's been apparent to me is how many different variations you have of the different dolls. Because most people, when they come out with a doll, they come out with like one doll or three dolls, but you've got these different head sculpts of the dolls, and you've got this huge line of dolls. So I'm super excited to know why you chose to go that route, and to just hear some, about the details of the decisions that you made. So that's where I'd like to begin.
That sounds great. Prior to contacting the factory, when I did the initial sculpts, I had originally done in 2003 to 2004, 2006, I released my very first dolls, which were resin and vinyl and PVC, and they were strung. And these dolls originally had two head sculpts. One was Elizabeth Bizelle, and the second head sculpt was her sister Kotalina. And the reason why there were two head sculpts back then is I had sent the original sculpt of the Elizabeth head to the factory, and the factory promptly lost it. And there was no copy. It was quite literally the one only original. And they said, well, just make another one. And I was like, I don't know. I mean, I've never remade a head in this way. So I had photos, and I looked at that as my reference, and I created a brand new sculpt, which I then sent to them, and then they received it. And at the time that they received it, they contacted me and said, oh, we found the original that was lost. And so, but they said, look, because of the upset that we created over this, let's go ahead and use both heads. Half the edition, the full number of editions was going to be 300 units, and I was to have 100 with black hair, 100 with red hair, and 100 with blonde hair, but the rest was the same, as in the same garment, same face makeup, etc., etc. Now, because there were two heads, the factory said, look, the original garment was going to be in blue. Let's do a variant of that, which ended up being black and purple. And so the black and purple dress was given to the Elizabeth head, and the blue dress was given to the Kotalin head. So that's why there was Elizabeth and Kotalin that came out in 2003 and 2006. So that's why I have sisters. That's why there's those two characters. So when I wanted to return to make dolls again, I was like, well, I would like to continue with those characters because I had registered their trademarks, etc., etc. So they have intellectual property value to me. And rather than create a whole new something, and I wasn't planning to re-release the old product, I decided, well, I would bring those two characters to be part of the range. So that meant I had the two Caucasian characters, which were sisters, Elizabeth and Kotalin. So that's two. So the other two characters, I was like, well, having just these two Caucasian characters may have been fine or not so fine in 2003 to 6, but in today's world culture, that's just not representative of where we all want to be. So I looked at what I wanted to create, and I thought, well, these are Australian girls, Elizabeth and Kotalin. I would like to do a Asian Australian character and a Black Australian character. And so that's where Lucille Lay came from as the Asian character, and then Bindi Marinda, which is the Black character. So that's why there are 4 characters.
Okay, interesting. Thank you.
Yeah,
That's
cool.
okay. So when I contacted the factory, originally they were saying to me that the minimum production run per garment, for the whole run, the minimum is 3,000 units. And they would only look at dividing it up into 500 units. So that would mean 6 editions. And I said, well, I said, that might be fine if you're Mattel or Integrity Toys or Tonner or any of these other well-established companies. I said, but this is a startup, and I don't have the confidence that 500 units is a good starting point. So we negotiated further, the factory and they decided, look, okay, fine, we will give you 8 instead of 6, so 2 additional. So that meant that instead of each edition being 500 units, each edition would be reduced down to 375 units.
Okay.
So that meant that I have 4 characters, 4 head sculpts, and that meant each head sculpt could appear twice, right?
Okay.
But what I wanted to do for skin tones was to have 5 different skin tones, and looking at like the obviously you can have many hundreds of skin tones from light to dark, dark to light, whichever way you want to sort of look at it. But the way that I thought would be a good way to progress forward is the Caucasian sort of mid-tone, which would be the center point, and then 2 colors either side. So going from the Caucasian, then to the Latino tan, then to the ebony sort of black is the darker range, and then from, again, the middle point of the Caucasian to the Japan skin tone, which is lighter, and then the ivory skin tone, which is lighter again. So that gave me the 5 different skin tones that I could then share the 4 different heads on. So as each head has only 2 appearances, the way that I decided to work it is Bindi, who is the black character, she appears only once in the darkest skin tone, which is what's that one called? The Mermaid Pool edition. So she's got the very dark skin tone, wearing the sort of turquoise jumpsuit. Then you have Bindi appearing for her second appearance in the Latino skin tone, and that is the Cool Begins one, where she has a lovely sort of pink pleated dress underneath a winter coat. So that's her two appearances. And then in the we have Lucille Lay. She appears in the Latino sort of tan skin tone in the garment set, which is called Executive Day Tonight. And her second appearance is in the lightest skin tone, which is the ivory skin tone. And she's in a beautiful sort of Asian looking gown, and that's called Yum Cha Cha Cha. And then we, and that's the only appearance in ivory skin tone. So the two extremes only have one appearance each in skin tones, and then the three middle skin tones have two appearances each in the main line. So we have then the Caucasian skin tone, and we have Elizabeth shown in there, and she is in double cross cover up, which is with a red jacket and a black and red cocktail dress, and with blonde hair. And her second appearance is in the ivory skin tone, and she has beautiful long red hair and wearing a gorgeous green winter evening gown, which is called Secret Garden Path. So that's her second appearance. And then we have her sister character, Kotalina Bizelle. Her Caucasian skin tone color edition is Glittering Gala, where she's got a very sort of natural red color hair. It's beautifully braided with a long tail, and the gown is a sequined, gorgeous evening dress. And her second appearance is called Ribbon Reveal, and that's in the Japan skin tone. And she has platinum blonde hair, and she's the dress is a sort of a peachy salmon sort of dress with lace and ribbon. And so that's all the mainline editions. But when the factory was negotiating with me over the 300 units and the divvying up of all of that, to make it a little bit more attractive to them to move to this scenario of reducing the edition size from 500 units to 375 units, what I ended up doing was saying, well, let's add another 200 units. So it's 3,200 units all up as part of the order. So what those extra 200 units became is going back to the original two characters, which was Elizabeth and Kotalina. Each of them have an additional 100 units as a variant of their edition. So the the difference between these variants, the factory would not change the garment, as in like no alternate colours or anything. But what they agreed to is we can do a variant of the facial screening colours and a variant of the hair colour and style. So the Elizabeth mainline edition that I chose, she has blonde hair, but in the and blonde hair and purple eyes. But in the variant, she has sort of very pale green eyes and red hair. And the Kotalina, in that edition is double up, cover up. That's it. And the ribbon reveal is the Kotalina Bizelle edition that I chose to have a variant. And so the mainline edition has the platinum blonde hair with the blue eyes, and the variant edition has green eyes with flaming orange hair. Now, each of those variants, hair colors that I wanted to see, but I wasn't sure that they would necessarily be popular enough to be given their own mainline hair color focus. But since I've been releasing update photos on my Instagram and Facebook page, which is at GlamourOz Dolls on Instagram, the response has been huge, and both of these variants have got very devoted fans, which I'm very thankful for. So, but there'll only be 100 of each, so they'll be very limited in number.
Okay.
So that's the therefore I have 8 mainline dolls and 2 variant dolls. The mainline each are 375 units, and the 2 variants are only 100 units each, and that means there's 10 editions. So there you go. That's the range.
That's amazing. We appreciate you telling that to us and explaining it. Now, just for the audience, if they haven't heard the other interview, can you speak briefly about the clothing?
Sure. All right. When I did the original dolls in 2003 and 2006, I, as an artist, I do my own fashion designs, etc., which is what I used for those editions. But when I came into doing this particular new GlamourOz Dolls, I was wanting that the dolls had not only meaning for myself, but meaning for my family, and could have a greater meaning in fashion and, the world art community. Now, I don't have any airs that my own fashion sense would have that, but I remembered back to when I was a young teen and my sister was being courted by what became her husband. I met his father, who is Stephen Moor, and of course he entered our family. And from those early years, he was very, very encouraging of me to enter into the art world because he felt I had some talent, which I was very grateful that he took that interest in me. And the wonderful thing about Stephen Moor is, at the time that he entered our family, is he was an internationally renowned artist already, being famous for his lead light works in churches and public spaces, his paintings and his sculptural work. And he had said to me, Joseph, I think you should do fashion. And he showed me this sketchbook of his, which had 80 sketches of fashion that he had done in the 60s. And he said to me, in his era of career, he says, you started one thing and you kept along it. He says these days, or those days, because he's passed away now. But people do change jobs much more regularly these days, whereas back then you started a career and you stuck with it. So he said, I had successes in my lead lighting and my sculpting and my painting. And he said, even though I've loved fashion, I could never express my fashion sort of ideas except privately. So these is a famous artist in Australia. and he's known overseas as well. But no one, except for the family at that time, had ever seen his fashion sketches. He said to me, I would love that you enter into fashion. I think you have the gift for it. And I give you these fashion sketches. And he says, at any time you want to use or utilize or be inspired or whatever from them, that I give them to you to use in whichever way you would like. And that was very, very touching and wonderfully supportive. Though, unfortunately, I didn't get into fashion, I ended up entering into 2D animation with Disney, which, of course, I absolutely loved. And I did that for about 13 years, working on Ariel and Jasmine and Touch It Belle and other sort of leading ladies for the Disney studios. And I think that was a very valuable sort of experience to have. It taught me that, as an artist, it's great to work when you're inspired, but as a working artist, you can't just work when you're inspired. You have to work on tap. You have to switch it on, let it flow, and it has to work every time. So it taught me, in somewhat a grueling and grinding way, how to make that a reality. And also because doing animation, you have to redraw the same character over and over again for subtle movement. Mm-hmm. I got to understand space and volume of the drawings that I create. And because I was doing Disney characters, the Disney princesses, I had to very much understand what it is that Disney considered the Disney look, right. that made them popular. So I haven't necessarily utilized any of what they consider is their formula, but I've certainly learnt how to apply that understanding to my own style, to create my dolls. And I think, Tommy Courtney, who unfortunately passed away recently, and we're all very, very sad about that. I know that I am. He very kindly did once a review on the best of sort of concepts in the doll world, and he included me in his sort of honourable mentions, which I was very thrilled that he did. And he said that my dolls came from a sort of an art space, headspace, and they were very fluid and flowing in body sculpt, which predated a lot of dolls that had happened since my sculpts from 2003 to 2006. So coming from the headspace of an animator is how I have looked at the sculpt of my GlamourOz dolls. And, of course, once I had done the sculpt, I was like, sure, I could dress them myself. I certainly have done it before. But thinking back, how could I make this have meaning for not just myself, but for the family and to the greater community? Spoke to my brother-in-law and sister, and I said, remember that sketch pocket of sketches that Stephen gave me, those 80 fashion sketches? Wouldn't it be so cool if we based the fashions that the GlamourOz dolls wore on his sketches that he did in the 60s? And everyone was on board for that. And I thought to myself, this is so cool, because now, the characters' names, Elizabeth and Kotalina, are actually my sister's first and middle name. Lucille is my mother's name. So that's three characters that are related to my two sort of very important ladies in my life. And I thought, okay, so when my nephews and niece, there's three of them, two nephews, one niece, when they look at these dolls, they will see represented not only what their uncle has done, but their mother is there, their grandmother is there on their mother's side, and their grandfather is represented on their father's side through Stephen's sketches. So that is the meaning that I wanted to have, that was family related, that, it was significant to everyone in the family, not just to me. So that's what I wanted so far as the family connection. So far as the...
Yeah.
Thank you.
That is really beautiful, Joseph.
Thank you. So far as the greater sort of connections, how I wanted it to resonate outside of the family is Stephen Moor is a significant artist from Australia's history. And he's now gone. He's passed, which is very sad. He passed in his 90s. And here we have amazing fashion sketches that he had never released in his lifetime. And I thought, what an honour it would be to showcase his amazing fashions that the Australian art world had never seen of his before. And I thought that would be just the best to honour him of the encouragement that he gave me as a young teen to enter into the art world. So that's part of it. The other part of it I thought is, so far as the doll fashion world, we see lots and lots of representation of 50s and 60s fashion, which is American-based, and mod fashions of the 60s from Britain. But very rarely, or not that I can even think of, and I know the doll world pretty well, I haven't really seen any Australian fashion represented, and certainly no 60s fashion of Australia represented in the fashion doll world. So I thought, well, here we go. I'm going to introduce Australian fashion made by a man in the 60s when he was around about 60, and, show the world his amazing fashions through the doll world. So they're all the very different sort of layers I was thinking about as I was entering into production for the GlamourOz Dolls. So that's why the dolls are wearing these fashions that are somewhat 60s, but the girls have a very sort of modern catwalk fashion model body. So the way that I consider it inaugural run is the GlamourOz Dolls Fashion Discovery, celebrating the lost 60s Australian fashions of Stephen Moor. That's on the box.
Wow, that's cool.
So
yeah, that is pretty cool.
And on the box are his a collection of his fashions that he had done in the 60s that had never been seen before or had published before. So people can, once they purchase their chosen doll, they can have a look on the box cover art and go, aha, this is the fashion I've just purchased. And of course, these are the other fashions I can buy.
Nice.
Are you selling the other fashions separate?
No.
Okay, because when you said that, it sounded like you're saying they could buy this doll as well as other clothing for their dolls.
Well, the situation for me is I chose 8 of what I considered my 8 favourite of his garments, though there are much more than just 8. But I chose 8 of what were my favourites, and they are going to be dress dolls. Now, so far as why there aren't more, self-funding this entirely, so I only have limited funds. I've got a bank loan against my home, and that is what is fueling all of this. Right. So what I could do with the minimum number of the 3,000 units being pushed to 3,200 units, and the fact that I've been, the prior work, which was almost a year of sculpting, 2 years of pre-production and 2 years now in production, that's 5 years commitment. I don't really have the possibility at this point with the limits of the investment that I have available to launch beyond the 10 editions that I have. Right. My hope is once the sales happen, and I'm hopeful that it'll sell out. If that's the case, that will make sure that I can continue to create more editions, which is what I would very much love to do. And the possibility is for return editions that I could possibly continue to do more of Stephen's fashions, or that could be its own separate line, and I could possibly start a new line with the GlamourOz dolls with my own fashions, which I'd very much love to do. With my experience doing the very first dolls I did in 2003 and 6, is, there is no guarantee you get to go beyond the first edition or even second edition, right? Which is what I had. I had 2 editions, and my thought in with the GlamourOz dolls, and with all of those reasons, the thought process that went into choosing Stephen Moor's fashions to go into the inaugural line, I thought, if I only have just one chance, this is what I want to do, and this is who I want to honour, and this is who I want to make it special to and for. So that's what I've done for the inaugural line, and my hope is that the sales go well, and from there I can expand on either more Stephen's fashions or my own.
Okay,
which I'd love to do both.
That makes sense. I just wanted to clarify that because it wasn't clear. It sounded like you were saying that there was a possibility that you could buy the fashion separately.
The reason why I mentioned that you could look at the box and see the other fashions is because, as I said, I'm doing 8 of Stephen's fashions, but on the box there's probably about 20 of his sketches. So whatever doll you buy, you will see the fashion that is in that box because it's one of those sketches. Why I referenced, if you look at the box, you can see some of the other fashions, is that 8 of those that are on the box artwork are the fashions that are being released in the inaugural editions.
Did you know, I meant to ask you, you said something about your father-in-law. Did you reference him? Do you have like a little information about that story, about that somewhere in your online or?
Yes, I have it on my website.
Okay, good.
There's not too much that's like published about him, but I have been, while I've been in production, there's been someone that contacted my brother-in-law who told me that someone is doing a uni course and a paper on him.
Oh, cool.
So hopefully that will be out around the time that my dolls are finally released. But yeah, so as I said, the fashions are this sort of hidden part of his artistic history, and the person who's doing the paper on him is doing it from the point of view of his amazing LED lighting that he's done for churches throughout Sydney and actually throughout Australia. He's done several churches and several public buildings. My brother-in-law and sister actually got married in one of the churches that he did.
Oh, nice.
So,
that's very nice.
So that was very special. So, and there's one church that's right in the middle of Sydney, near Central Station, so it's obviously very central, where Stephen did all of the LED lighting there as well as having some original sort of religious iconic paintings that are in the various vestibules of the church. I mean, his work is tremendous. Nice. It's very, very inspiring to look at, and it has great meaning for me. Yeah. And he was a wonderful guy. What we used to do when I was that young teen is the two of us would draw together, as in we would have little drawing competitions, drawing our lovely ladies in fashions.
Nice. And, that's nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's very encouraging. That's great.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
So
that's really
I wanted to do that. My father also was a very talented artist and painter. Unfortunately, he never got that chance, and I never felt that he had the hunger to go after that. I think his priority was to earn
Take
enough
care of the family.
to look after the family. So
Right.
he turned his artistic skills to being a house painter, and I know that was grueling because, you know, everyone in the family helped out on occasion at different times, you know, where we would go around and sand the skirting boards and the door jambs and the doors and the windows, all of that. And you'd spend a day doing that to a whole house, and by the end of it, your fingers were like glass because they were shredded by the sandpaper. And of course, if my father had to do that and also paint,
Right.
which most of the times he did anyway, but whenever we could, we helped. But, you know, I was the youngest, and I was like, my fingers are bleeding. I don't want to do it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I did it, but not always enthusiastically. Now, as an adult, I look back and I go, gee, I wish I was more enthusiastic when I was helping my dad.
But that's something important that you've spoken about earlier. And it's a lot of times people think that they have this romantic notion about art and artists, and it's sort of like you're born an artist. And I think that for a lot of artists, it's about training. And
oh yeah,
I know my daughter is an artist, and people refer to her talent. And yes, there's this base level of talent, but she says, I am as good as I am because of how I work and how I train and learn different techniques. And I think that that's important for people to know, and to know that, you know, working at Disney isn't all romantic. There's some grueling things. You're drawing the same pose with a little different. I think it's important for people to hear that. I thought that was an important part of your story.
Oh, most definitely. And the thing is, not only do you have to do that, but you have to do it at a particular speed of output. I mean, there was a time when I was first at Disney. You enter as an in-betweener, which is you do the in-between drawings that the animator does. So that's where you enter in. But at the time that I entered the Disney studios, within about 4 months, they felt I was good enough to try to get into animation. Many years later, it would be like a year sort of training before you could even consider going into animation. So I happened pretty quickly for me, which is great. That's the raw talent. But the thing is, there was no training situation when I was doing it. That became something later. You had to do it sink or swim on yourself, by yourself. And the thing is, I had to do what was required for the animation team that every other full-fledged animator was doing if I wanted to get in. And quite literally, when I started doing the animation to sort of get in, just to get the work done, I was literally working, you know, through the night, every night, with the least amount of sleep between, for a whole month, just to get the amount done that was needed and the correct sort of stuff, because I wasn't used to doing that. And it was such that was the grueling aspect of it.
That was a sink or swim, right? Sink or swim.
Oh, absolutely.
Yes.
Sink or swim. But the most amazing thing happened. I remember I was working on this and I was thinking, when is this going to stop? When am I going to be able to do it like these other people? Then all of a sudden, it was like there was a switch that went in my brain that was almost audible. And I was like, bang. And all of a sudden, it just clicked with me, and I could make it happen in the time that I needed without having to suffer through it. And I was like, all right, I get it now. This is what it is that you need to do. And but the thing is, you don't get those sort of revelations if you don't put in the time and you're pushed to understand that, you know? I don't think in any artistic field that you go into, a raw talent is enough. You have to really work it to polish it.
I mean,
that's right.
And I think we talked about this too before. about creating a doll. You know, people see dolls and they're like, oh my God, I just want to create a doll. I want to have a doll company. I want to do this. But do they know the time and the effort it takes
No.
to creating, right, to bringing something, you know, out of your head into actual fruition and something that's tangible? And so I think that, you know, the things that we're doing here in the doll world is about telling those stories so people can see, yes, you can attain that, but in order to attain that, these are the things that you may have to go through. It may not be exactly what I went through, but it is a learning period and it's a growing period to where you want to be. And then, of course, at the end of the day, as an artist, you always want to get someplace else too. You know, so you don't want to stop there, but, you know, you want to give them at least an understanding of the foundation and the things that you go through for your growth in order to you know, to get the amazing quality of work that you're sharing with the world. So I think that's so key.
The thing that I'd say to that is there are no overnight successes.
No,
nothing,
really, Joseph?
Yeah.
Nothing happens. I mean, it might look like that, but it's never that way.
Yeah.
And also the thing that I've found with the creation of this doll, even the fact that, you know, the original sketches are based for the fashions on Stephen Moor. I mean, I was actively involved with translating them into real fashion, you know. So they didn't just jump into existence. I was there shaping their realization, you know. So I was involved with the fashion. I added aspects to the fashion, like, for instance, the red jacket that goes with the double cross cover up. Elizabeth Bizelle, I added that to it. The dress that goes under the winter jacket for Bindi Mirinda, I designed that as well. So there's some pluses that I've thrown into plus Stephen's works. And the experience of doing the dolls, I mean, like, every doll that is created that is absolutely a focused funneling of their life experience and their artistic experience wherever that's come from.
That is true.
And so that's why when you look at all of these different dolls, they're all so different because as a friend once said to me when they were looking at my doll and looking at other dolls that I had in my collection, they said, well, no doll will be the same because no creator has had the same experience. So your doll looks like this because of everything that you have done and been, and that's the results. Whereas, you know, this other doll maker, his doll looks like this or her doll looks like this because that is the personification in doll of their life experience and their artistic experience. You know?
Wow, that's so true. And that's so powerful. Wow, love that. Yeah.
So that's why all the dolls are so different, but they're all legitimately amazing because they are the doll artists. You know, art given life through dolls. So it's amazing. I love that idea.
When you do dolls, you definitely, like you said, bring your own creativity. You come from a different background. I mean, so a lot of your stuff also leads in for you too, is because you were an animator, right? So you come at a different thought process. And I remember it was funny because when me and Audrey did our dolls, the Big Beautiful Dolls, we didn't really have an artist design, right? We didn't know what we were flowing into, except that, you know, we had this idea. And since we did not do art, our dolls came to us differently then. So if you're not an artist, you're not a drawer, anything like that, you just have this idea, then that art is going to be different than from what you would have done, because you come from a different background.
Not having an artistic history does not mean that the doll is any lesser if you have had art experience. But the thing is that when you look at the Big Beautiful Doll, and they're gorgeous dolls, they are representative of your life experiences given reality, and they're gorgeously, legitimately presenting that, and they're fabulous. I love them. Congratulations.
Well, but I think that's really what you, like that guy said, it comes from your own background and your own desire to create something that is artistic, and it comes from you. Really, it comes from the things that that you've been through in your lifestyle and your history and things like that. So I think that is so telling.
And that's a really common trope too, because you look at it and you see, like, as a tech writer, that's my background, and it's like, do you hire the person who is technically savvy, or do you hire the person who is the writer? Because when you hire the person who is technically savvy, they often will forget to add these entry level steps because they had to go. I mean, they did that so long ago, so their document looks very different than your person who is like the virgin to the technology, but knows how to write, because they are going along learning the technology as they're writing the book. So that, I mean, that's a really common thing that we, just in life, how life experience affects everything we do. Yeah,
absolutely. And one thing that, because I've had several wonderful opportunities to meet with Robert Tonner over the years. And he said to me, he entered through fashion into doing dolls. And he said, no matter what it is or how it is that you want to realize dolls, not every person will have the skills to every aspect of a doll. He says, what you do is you do what you can and you hire someone to do what you can't. I thought that's pretty wise too.
That's right.
Yes.
Okay.
So who sculpted? Who sculpted the big beautiful doll? Was it the two of you, or
no?
Was
it was
someone
interesting.
Else
it was somebody else involved. We at that time we were very limited on money. We found a sculptor through Integrity Toys, as a matter of fact. I called him.
Fantastic.
I found some boxes when I went to the store, because we were like, oh, how are we going to do this? And I found Integrity Toys. And so we went and called him, and we got an interview with him, and he talked to us about the process. And then he referred us to a sculptor that he worked with, who actually, she was on hiatus because unfortunately she had some family emergencies in her family. So she had stopped sculpting for a while, but she sculpted for Star Wars, I believe.
Wow.
And so she had stopped sculpting for a long time. So she was on hiatus, and Percy referred us to her. And we only had two choices, my face or Orgy's face, because we really couldn't pay rights to anything. We couldn't do anything like that. So we used Orgy's face, and she kind of, tweaked it a little bit. And that's how we came up with that doll. Eventually I was going to do my face, but we didn't move forward in production of the dolls because the pricing. So so that's how we got it sculpted. Yeah, we got a great sculptor to do her. So we were happy with that. Yes, we bought in.
So you do what you can, and you hire someone to do what you can't.
As entrepreneurs who create, sometimes we get that thing of thinking we can do everything. You have to, I believe, what Robbie Tyner said to you was correct. You have to know where your genius lies, and where other people's genius lies. I grew up a girl all my life and still can't do hair. So, I was not about to try to do hair on a doll. But so you get those people that can do those things. And so I think that's important.
And the one
Joseph, you can do it all. So you're just amazing like that.
Oh, you're very kind to say. But yeah, certainly, unless it's like an artist doll where someone is quite literally doing it on their own, and usually those ones are extremely small. If you're doing something like a production doll with a factory, as I am, and you had, it involves a lot of people. I mean, these dolls do not, they are not birthed like Aphrodite or Venus from a shell. They don't just go, and there she is. There's heavy duty on-hand working with a lot of people involved to get it to a finished product. I remember as a kid, I would go into the Barbie and doll aisle, looking at the dolls wistfully and thinking, oh, I want this one and that one and all of them. And you would see the Barbie dolls, which were, more expensive than the cheap dollar rip-off types that were sort of, in the same aisle. And I used to look at them and go, well, they look pretty similar. They have similar types of joints. but the difference is Barbie, of course, is beautifully sculpted, and this doll is just like a ghastly sculpt. And I thought, and I'm thinking, well, that's why it's $1, and the other is 20. And I think this $1 doll could be so much more successful if it was beautifully sculpted. And that got me thinking at that age, well, what happens before these dolls appear on the shelves? You know, what's their backstory? How did they get here? Obviously, they came into existence before they came into existence for me right then and there when I saw them on the shelves.
Right.
They had to come from somewhere. And so that's the early sort of thoughts that I had about, well, where do dolls come from? How do they get made? Who makes them?
Interesting.
Why can't I make one?
Yeah. I think that this has been an amazing interview. We could sit here and talk to you all day and go from one thing to the next. We're looking forward to singing your GlamourOz dolls. Thank you for educating us about how you got to the number of dolls and their clothing.
My pleasure.
Yeah, we look forward to talking to you again.
Oh, absolutely. I would very much love to the opportunity to talk with you lovely ladies again when my dolls are actually sort of ready for sales.
Yeah.
That would be a great time to do that.
Yeah, maybe by then you'll actually be home in Australia.
Yes, back home.
I'm so looking forward to getting home.
I know you are.
Yeah.
I know you are, sweetie. Well, we pray that you get there safe and sound when it's time for you to move on, and we pray that you have a major success with your GlamourOz dolls. I mean, because a lot of thought goes into it. There's a lot of history behind that, and I'm just excited for you and for the dolls. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much, Georgette, and thank you very much, Tammy. That's been wonderful.
All right, bye everyone.
To another edition of the In the Doll World. Talk to you guys later. Bye.
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 Hey everybody, thank you so much for listening to In the Doll World. Me and Tammy really hope that you enjoyed the show. Please don't forget to share our podcast with other doll enthusiasts such as yourself. And if you would like to leave a message on how you enjoyed the show, or you want to suggest any guests that we should interview, as well as share information about what's happening in the doll community in your area, please know that you can reach out to us at georgette.inthedollworld@gmail.com and or tammy.inthedollworld@gmail.com. Also, if you want to see some of the photos we will be posting of our guests as well as the dolls that they talk about on the show, please visit www.inthedollworld.com. And until next week, add a little play into your life by collecting a doll, sharing a doll, or giving a doll a home. Until next week, thank you again for listening to In the Doll World.